Uh, let's get started. I am Dr. Michelle Wilshire, licensed clinical psychologist here in Florida and operating also in New York, and also founder of Wasabi and Well, a small private practice. And I'm joined today by an amazing person that I can't wait for you to meet. How about you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Leandra Chambers Campbell. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, also based in South Florida. Hoping to be licensed in Maine soon, so that's coming. And
Oh,
yeah, happy to be here today.
great. Really excited to have you with us. And, when Leandra presented the topic of interest for today, I was and still am completely ignorant to the topic. I intentionally, because when she mentioned the topic, I could have gone and done a bunch of research, but I was like, no, 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 no. I want to stay ignorant. So let's jump in. What are we talking about today and why does it interest you?
So we're talking about parasocial relationships, interactions, relationships, and the impact on one's self-esteem.
Okay. Tell
And
us more.
so the definition, I want to make sure I get this right. So they're one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, but the other party, which is referred to as the persona, is completely unaware of the other's existence. So the most common thing is like a celebrity. People are super into celebrities. They support them. They spend money to buy their movies or merchandise or whatever. And that celebrity has no idea that you even exist, but you feel a strong connection to them.
Oh, so this is not a new thing. Right? I was in my
It's
mind thinking
not.
this is new.
It's not.
Okay.
And I didn't know. I thought it was a new thing too. And then when I started researching it, I realized the term was actually coined in 1956. And it was actually
Okay.
published in the Journal of Psychiatry at that time.
Wow. So was there some prompt, some event that led to that you know of that led to coining the term?
I don't know if there was a specific event. I just assume maybe it was like kind of the height of Hollywood and movie stars and things like that. I also pulled the opening line from that journal article just to hear. It's just
Okay.
so funny to see that sounds exactly like what's happening now, right? But this was in 1956. So it says
Mm.
mass communication and parasocial interaction, observations on intimacy at a distance. That's the name of the article. Um,
Mm.
and the opening line says one of the striking characteristics of the new mass media, radio, television, and the movies, is that they give the illusion of face-to-face relationships with the performer. The conditions of response to the performer are analogous to those in the primary group. The most remote and illustrious men are met as if they were in the circles of one's peers. The same is true of a character in a story who comes to life in these media in an especially vivid and arresting way. We propose to call this seeming face-to-face relationship between spectator and performer a parasocial relationship.
Wow. That's exactly what's happening
1956.
today. You move
Yes,
on from radio, and that's, I mean, radio is still here,
right.
all the way into streaming
Mhm.
and social, was it Insta famous people and all the things.
The
Okay.
influencers, yeah. And even TV, I think we're moving away from too, and it's more the streaming, like you said.
Such a good point. When I have a niece and nephews that are between 7 and 12, and they've got these videos that they're always watching from other kids that are producing videos, and
Mhm.
they're not watching TV anymore. They
Mhm.
watch YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's live
Oh,
too, right? That's another thing, the
right.
whole genre of like
Exactly.
live streamers, not just people that produce content. It's recorded and then they upload it. Now it's live. So you're there watching them live stream. And they can't be
Yeah,
aware of
very
everyone's
good point.
existence on that live stream. So it's very interesting.
Like we just said, I when I'm doing we have YouTube live going, I'm not even looking at the live. So if the chat's happening, I have no idea. Difference is I am not an influencer. So um, well, I'd love to hear more about why you are interested in this topic. You know, you as yourself, whether it's personally and then also professionally.
So personally, well, I feel like I definitely have parasocial interactions.
Okay.
I think almost everybody does today. Maybe they're not aware of it. You know, maybe they don't know it as that
Mm-hmm.
term. It has gotten popular like last year. Parasocial relationships was sort of trending. And I think that's when
Mm-hmm.
I did hear about it was last year. Um, I think it was because of the pandemic and people being home more and the rise of like sites like OnlyFans and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's been in existence well before that. So, you know, even just being really attached to a TV show, right? Like everybody is into, you know, like Stranger Things, right? And then you
Love
get
it.
sad when it ends, but you feel this really strong connection to those characters and the actors that play them when, you know, they don't know that you exist. Like, yes, they know they have millions of fans,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't realize the impact they have on you. But so I realize that
Wonderful.
I have that. I think many others do. But professionally, I think what's good about it is it's actually been shown to increase your self confidence, your belief in your own self efficacy, a sense of
Really?
belonging. And
Hmm.
apparently, it can actually help you expand your social networks in real life. Because, you know, I think there's still
This
like a stigma. Go ahead.
I'm so shocked about that. And I'm like, because in my mind, remember the title I put, with self-esteem, thinking like decreases self-esteem, that maybe it's an indicator of low self-esteem and low confidence. But you're telling me it's the complete opposite, and I'm floored by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I couldn't really find too much on this quite yet, but I believe it's like, you know, a fine line. Like, when does it turn
Mm.
from helpful to hurtful? But I think that's the
Mm,
case with anything. You know,
that's true.
if it negatively starts impacting your life, okay, then we need to look at what that is, no matter what it might be. One thing can be
Mm-hmm.
healthy for somebody, and the next thing, if they do it too much, it's unhealthy. But
Right.
I also really liked that it can translate to real life, because the
Mm,
reason that you might be identifying so much with a certain persona is they share similar values to you, right? And maybe they help you discover
oh,
values that you didn't realize. And now you're like, hey,
right.
you know what? I value this. And then it maybe starts to make you think, I want to find other people who share similar values. So
Hmm.
maybe that means you find people online, maybe you start to do things in real life, and then you start to actually expand your social network. So I think that was an important, it interested me because I think there's still a stigma like, you know, oh, people are online all the time, or you watch too much streaming, or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, sure, maybe there's a point where if you're completely isolating, then maybe that's not helpful. But if it's making you feel like you belong and it's helping you identify values and people in real life that match
Mm-hmm.
up with that, then maybe that's actually a good thing and something we can talk about, you know, with our clients, like professionally.
Right. Absolutely. Can you think of, I'm thinking on the spot here, but can you think of uh, times like scenarios with clients that this has come up, and not a specific client per se, because you've seen a lot of people, but like thinking about when it has actually been really helpful for a client versus hurtful.
Hmm. Well, off the top of my head, a client did come to mind, but I don't know if it's helpful. So maybe that's not the best
Mm.
example. Um, but actually, I'm thinking of another client now. She told me that she streams on Twitch, which is
Mm.
like more video game centered. I mean, I guess you can
Yeah.
stream about anything you want now. But I think it started more so as a video game website
Mm.
streaming.
Right.
And so she said that she streams playing video games with her boyfriend to this online community. So for her, it was like
Mm.
it brought her and her boyfriend closer. And then it was also like streaming to people that found it interesting. And she got engagement, and it made her want to continue to do that. And it was like a fun, also bonding activity for her and her partner.
Love it. Love it. I'm a gamer myself, so I also just know how gaming, doing something of interest with your partner, whatever it is valuable. And so it seems like it was doing double the work because there was, like you said, the engagement side outside of their relationship, but then also internal to the relationship. A really great example. I love that. Because I think that I'm thinking too small. And that's why my theory of like, oh, self-esteem must be uh, low for a lot of people. But, you're really bringing into account, I just think about like growing up watching uh, WWF with my family, and we knew the names of these characters, and it's all acting, and we're acting out what they're doing right there in the living room, grandma and granddad, this person and that person, and having a dialogue. And so it was connection. And so I'm that's where my mind is going to right now, that these parasocial relationships can extend in so many ways that are healthy, that I did not think about. So this is really, really cool. And with that, I'm thinking we could probably be intentional about it,
Mhm.
right? If you were to think about, I'm wondering if you would have, thoughts on this, but how could we be intentional about bringing up parasocial
Mm.
relationships?
Bringing it up.
Because our clients may not be right, because maybe our clients are not thinking about the connections that they actually do have, both in their
Exactly.
homes or online. Yeah. Any thoughts around, maybe ways that we can be intentional about that?
Um, yeah, I think so. If I were to bring it up to a client, you know, I
Mhm.
could actually use that in a way of maybe a values exploration, right? Like, who do you tend to follow on Instagram or whatever it is that you're on? Okay, why do you follow those people? What do you like about their content?
Right.
Oh, okay, it turns out you're really into activism or something, nature.
Mm.
Okay, maybe there's a local nature activist group in your area, and you can look into that and find people. Or maybe, drill it down, and instead of this more public figure, find like a local meetup or Facebook group that's in your city that then you can go to, you know
Right. Mm.
Another thing too is,
Okay.
you brought up the like watching stuff with family. That was
Mhm.
another thing I found when I was researching this topic more, is that it's actually a good way to talk about this parasocial relationship with other people, and that it's safe for people to admire these personas without jealousy, because it's like you're
Mm.
both into it. And then that can lead to also interesting discussions. Now, I'm not sure I totally agree with that though. And that was a point
Mm.
that I had written, like, I don't know, there could be times where I think there could be jealousy, right? Like if it's a attractive celebrity and your partner's talking about that celebrity, and then maybe the other partner is like, what do you like about that celebrity so much? And then maybe some comparison starts to happen. But then there's,
For sure.
Grey's Anatomy, people who love Grey's Anatomy, and they spend all this time talking to their friends about it and coming up with theories and what's going to happen. And, so that's another way where it can just make you feel a sense of belonging, even with your real life friends, watch parties, and, and even
love a good
sports is
watch
another
party.
big thing. Sports organizations. I mean, we see how people get with sports, tailgating, Super Bowl.
And then talking about the player as if they had full control over making that shot, because it's the whole game was on them. I probably not the best person to bring up sports too.
I'm not so much into it either, but I think it's also a good conversation because maybe when we talk about some influencer or social media, I feel like we automatically tend to think of like women. But if you look at sports, now this brings in like, okay, men do this too. And yes, women have always been into sports as well. But, I think there's that stereotype like, well, more men are into sports and, women are more into the social media influencers in a way. And so I think it brings a whole different population into it when we talk about sports organizations.
That's a beautiful point. Man, see, so this right here is stimulating so many thoughts and ideas just with the examples that you've given of how we are already involved in these parasocial relationships and the benefits of it. So you sort of touched on the downsides and potential downsides. Can we revisit that? Tell us more about the harm that can come from parasocial relationships.
So I guess the most obvious example might be going back to the OnlyFans website, like I talked about, which is a subscription service. People can pay to see people on there. Usually it has this connotation that it's sexual content. So a lot of men are on it to pay for sexual content from personas that they admire. So, and I think that's why it came up a lot last year. I saw a lot of like video essays on YouTube about how there's so many men and women too, but more so men that are on OnlyFans paying money every month to people on it. And that person, the content creator, has no idea that this person exists. Or maybe they do, but they're just doing it for monetary reasons. But at some point you get so large, there's no way you can know every single person in your fan base. But the people that are paying the money believe that they're in this relationship with this person. So I think that's where it can be harmful, right? Like somebody who maybe struggles with getting into relationships, instead of trying to work on that, they'll just say, well, I'll just pay for the subscription on OnlyFans, and then I kind of feel like I'm getting a similar experience. And then maybe they have less motivation to work on whatever it is that they may be struggling with that is preventing them from having a relationship in real life.
Right. Or the one that they actually have, right?
Yes, that happens a lot. I have a couple of clients where they specifically told me they found out that their partner had an OnlyFans subscription to some person on there, and it really hurt their self-esteem. And, they were able to recover from it, but, the trust was definitely altered there. So.
But self-esteem comes up again. So not the person who has the parasocial relationship, but the one who's in a relationship with the person who's having the parasocial relationship. Ripple effects, right? I mean,
another very interesting thing where maybe this, it could maybe be not harmful, but a negative of it. You become so attached to this particular persona or show or sports team, whatever. If that persona dies or the show ends or something like that, right? Or they stop
Mhm.
posting. There's evidence that shows that that sense of loss is very similar to grieving a real life social relationship. So
I
that's
feel
another
that.
thing. Yeah. And think about it,
Oh
like
yeah.
when one of your favorite shows ended that had been on and you have this attachment, it's like, the show's not on anymore, you know? And there's that loss.
Guilty. Guilty. Yep. For me, so my show, Monk, the detective with all the OCD issues.
You know, I never got into that,
Monk,
but I've seen a lot of content about it. I know there's a lot of fans for that show.
yeah. Well, Monk got me through some of the toughest times in my doctoral program.
Mhm.
And I was out on the West Coast on my own, I had to make new friends, which, that part was fun and great, but you're still a sense of loneliness when you're on one coast and all of your family and friends are on another coast. And in my case, on another coast and down to the Caribbean. And so, plus all the work that you had to do in doctoral program, and the demands, and streaming was sort of just becoming a bit more accessible during part of their seasons that were available. And yeah, so Monk really got me through. So it's so much so that I watch Monk on repeat to maintain my relationship. So one of my ways of coping, but when it ended, I didn't have access to it. And I remember going through the withdrawals and the grief and loss process.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it can even form, there's another level called parasocial attachment, which I thought was interesting, to piggyback off of attachment theory. And then there's parasocial breakup, which is what you just described with the Monk show.
Yeah. I think they end it, right? I don't want it to end.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So many ways that there can be an a negative, or let's say negative impact, right? Because sometimes something that's negative can actually turn out to be a positive, but in this case, it felt negatively and hurtful. Um, yeah, and I'm sure if I'm thinking about the work I've done over all these years, it's definitely come up, but I didn't.
I lost your audio. I can't hear you anymore. Not sure what happened. Can you hear me? Headphones usually solves it. Oh, I think, yeah, I hear you now. Okay.
Failing me. You're failing me. Sorry about that. So I didn't hear what you were saying before.
I was just saying that I couldn't hear you. I think you were saying something and then the audio went out.
Gotcha. I think I was just saying that yeah, so many ways that now I have the words that I can talk to my clients with, this like newfound language that you've introduced to me, and help them either foster more of these relationships and in their network, or also then challenging and supporting the release and grief and loss process. Yeah. Because these are opportunities. That's also another like reframe here, is that when a show ends, it's actually an opportunity to practice your grief and loss process, out like the whole permanence of death of a real person, right? So yeah.
And also find out, what was that show doing for you? Why did you connect with those characters so well?
I love it. I love that. So that deepening their understanding of self, I mean, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And like we
Yeah.
said, kind of practicing for grief in a way, like it can also be practicing for real life relationships too, because the parasocial relationships are more safe, there's a less chance of rejection, right? Because the person doesn't even know who you are. So
Mhm.
that was another interesting thing that I read about it. So
Yeah. I mean, this is an amazing topic and concept that clearly just in this conversation, you've identified so many ways that we can start utilizing this concept in our sessions with our clients to foster or to deepen self-awareness um, and to grow skills. So really valuable, and you've turned my whole head around now, like in a good way, that I'm not thinking so negatively about this term parasocial relationships. So I was like, I feel like it needs a different term because it sounds negative.
Well, since it did originate in 1956, maybe that's why. Maybe we can maybe there'll be some rebranding at some point.
And maybe you'll be the one to do it, sort of coin something fresh as like new generations are always doing that, right? Kind of revisiting these terms and making it
Mhm.
more relatable to our times.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Is there anything else that you want us to know about this topic that other or tips and tricks of what to do if you're watching this video either now or in the future and you're like, yeah, I saw myself, I heard myself in this talk. Yeah. So any tips, tricks, or add-ons?
So, one thing I want to point out is, so scholars agree that this is normal. Parasocial connections are normal. So, let's destigmatize that. Everybody
Mhm.
does that. Even if those people, oh, I don't have social media. Okay, well, there's sports, there's TV, there's celebrities, like it's normal.
Mhm.
Um, Also, I want to point out, so the internet is 24/7 now. So that's also kind of what's changed it, is it's so prevalent.
Mhm.
So I think those who struggle with internet dependency, they probably need to be a little more aware of this, right? But again, it's like, okay, let's use that to learn more about yourself, to then try to translate that into real life.
Mhm.
Um, Also, another thing, this actually was really helpful in COVID. So anytime there's quarantine, isolation,
Mhm.
it's okay to turn to these parasocial interactions. I think one thing to be aware of is that there's actually a difference between an interaction and then a relationship and then attachment. So it kind of goes in that order. So the interaction could be something like, hey, we're live streaming. Somebody hops onto the live stream. You click the like button or something.
Mhm.
Maybe you send a chat and then you go about your day.
Okay.
It turns into a relationship once it goes beyond the current interaction. Um, so
Mm.
I think it's good for people to be aware of, when does it turn into relationship and then attachment, and how deep does that go?
Okay. That makes sense. Hmm. So we should be a bit more mindful. It would be
Mhm.
helpful to be more mindful of, are we thinking about, are we posting about, are we not necessarily interacting, but um, I mean, online the analytics do call it interactions, but is it like a one-sided interaction?
Mhm.
Like going down and liking every single post that the person has put out. So being mindful. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
that makes sense. Wow. All right. This has been really interesting. Love this topic. Now that we've had this conversation, I'm going to do some more digging of my own so that I don't remain ignorant and so that I can be better prepared. And hopefully, this conversation with Leandra today either helps you to dig into your own life and your own needs and insight and awareness. Or if you're a clinician watching, you now have some new terms and something else that you can look up and bring up in your sessions to help your clients. So you're not getting any CEs from this talk, but helpful nonetheless. So Leandra, tell us a little bit more about where we can find you. If you want to be found online, you can let us know. If you want some one-sided relationships of your own. And also a bit more about types of clients that you enjoy working with, like topics and challenges, so that anyone who wants to connect with you, they can do so.
Well, I am joining your practice, Wasabi and Well, so people can find me on your website, wasabiwell.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Leandra Campbell. If people want to email me, my email is therapywithleandra@proton.me. And I'm also on Psychology Today. I don't have any social media profiles yet set up, but I might do that in the soon future. But I am on LinkedIn though, in Psychology Today. And like I said, I am really happy to be part of your practice. So that's fun and exciting. And people I like to work with, young adults usually. People are in their like peak of their career. You know, I have a lot of people that have like job stress, relationship stress, anxiety, depression. I also do have a lot of experience with substance use disorders, people in recovery. So because, you know, people still need or really want to continue therapy even after they've gotten sober, you know, years later. So, but sometimes that might be stigmatizing to feel like, oh, I need to go back to therapy, or I need to continue this, or so I'm very allied with people in the recovery community. I'm also biracial. I'm mostly Italian and Jamaican. So I feel like there's interesting different experiences that biracial people have versus people who are, I guess, monoracial, if that's a term. You know, growing up with two different cultures and what that experience was like growing up, and sort of actually kind of struggling between two different identities. So I think I also have a unique experience with that. And I have had some clients who are also biracial specifically want to work with me because of that.
Yes, and absolutely right on point that even though we might emphasize Black wellness and, you know, seeing a therapist that looks like you, sometimes you have to look a little bit deeper because we are all so different and we bring our own unique personalities and histories and narrative to sessions. And so, and then not every biracial therapist wants to necessarily work with that on those challenges or issues. So I'm glad that you're able to explicitly say that's something that you are interested in doing in the practice. So amazing, love it. I know you don't have your social media handles up as yet, but if you follow on Instagram, Wasabi Wellness, you know, at Wasabi Wellness, whenever Leandra does have social media handles, she'll definitely be linked to the Instagram page as well. And then if you want to see her very, very soon, you can go to wasabiwell.com/insurance, spelled exactly like you hear it, and join the wait list, which we're going to start digging into in the next week, literally right around the corner, and going to start filling Leandra's caseload with people who are ready to heal. So thank you so much for joining me today, Leandra. This was really insightful. and a lot of gems dropped today. So thank you so much. And I hope you have an amazing weekend.
Thank you for having me. I was very happy to have the conversation, and I hope you have an amazing weekend as well. And to anyone else who's